what a prayer room is? Hi kids, this is Auntie Mila. Welcome to my house. I'm so glad you came by. Matthew 6:6 says, when you pray, go away by yourself. Shut the door behind you and pray to your Father in private. That's what it says. And that is what a prayer room is. It's a little room or a closet that you go in and you shut the door and you get down and you kneel down and you pray and you pray and you pray. That's a prayer room. Well, our story happened in China back during the Communist Revolution. That was back in between 1945 and 1949, right in there. The communists were taking over. Well, Dr. Huang was living there with his family. He was a Christian, and he loved the Lord. And he loved him so much, he said, I need a room that's just for prayer. Because he had read Matthew 6:6. And he said, let me see. Oh, and he was looking around in his house, and he found a little room. And he thought, you know what? He walked in and looked around. He says, this could be my prayer room. So when I pray, I go into this little room and shut the door and pray to God in private. But beyond that door was a closet. And so he said, this is going to be my prayer room. So he fixed it all up. He cleaned it, put a little rug there to kneel on, and he put his Bible there and some markers and pens and paper. And every morning he would get up very early in the morning and he would tiptoe real quietly so his family could keep sleeping. He didn't want to wake anyone up. And he would go to his prayer room and he would read his Bible, and then he would mark it and go, oh. And so then he would kneel down and pray, and he would pray and pray and pray to God in private. So then the sun started coming up, and he thought, I've got to get with the day. I've got to get with the day. And he went out and he went to the clinic to see patients. And then he would come home. And this was his routine. Every morning he'd get up and he'd go to his prayer room. He had a little prayer room with a door, and he would shut the door. Dr. Huang really loved the Lord. He was a very dedicated Christian, and he taught his children that. Well, one day he came home and told his wife, he says, I have some bad news. He says, the communist soldiers are coming closer to our town. And he said, I think what I should do is go to the market and buy rice, enough for us, because they're going to come in and they're going to take all the food, because there'd be thousands of soldiers that would need food. He says, I think I will go to the market. So he went to the market and he bought a big bag of rice, and he brought it home and put it in his little closet beyond the prayer room. He says there was an empty closet there, and he said, I can store it there. So he put it there. The next day he went to the market and he bought some more rice. And he had quite a bit of rice back in that closet beyond his prayer room. So he told his family, and he told his wife, he said, now when the soldiers come, we have rice to eat. She says, good. Well, a few days later, here came the soldiers, and they came marching into town, and everyone thought, oh dear, what are we going to do? And they would go to one house, and they would knock on the door really loud. And the people would open the door and says, we want your rice, because we are hungry and we want your rice. And the people didn't want to give their rice up. What would they eat? And the soldiers would march into their house and, where's your rice? We want your rice. And they said, well, it's over there. and they'd go over there and get all their rice and take it, march out with it. Then they'd go to the next house and they would bang on the door. And then go to the next house and they were clutching up the rice because the soldiers needed to eat. And Dr. Huang could see the soldiers coming down the street. He could hear them banging at the other doors. He thought, well, they're going to come to our house and they're going to take our rice. Then what? We'll be very hungry. And sure enough, they came to Dr. Huang's house. And they banged on the door. Dr. Huang opened the door. They said, we want your rice. He says, okay, I will show you where my rice is. Follow me. He took him through the house and took him to the prayer room, and he looked in. He opened the prayer room door and he said, you go through this room and the rice is right there. The rice is right there in that next room. You just open that door. That's where we keep our rice. And the soldiers would come up and they would stop suddenly at the threshold, right at the door of going into the prayer room, and they would stop. They would leave. And some other soldiers said, did you get the rice? He says, no, but it's over there. So the other soldiers would come, where's your rice? And Dr. Huang said, I'm not resisting you. I'm not fighting you. I'm telling you where the rice is. It's right through this room into that closet. Just open that door. And they would start walking, and they stopped right at the door edge, and they'd look through, and they would get this scared look, and they'd walk away. Well, the next day, there was a loud knock at their door again the next evening. And they said, we came to get your rice. Dr. Huang said, okay, come in, please. I'll show you where my rice is. I'll show you where I keep it. And the same thing happened. He walked over to the door and he said, now, just beyond this room, he opened the door and let them look in. See that closet over there, that small door? The rice is right beyond there. They said, okay, and they started going, and they stopped right at the threshold, and they turned around and left. This happened over and over. And when Mrs. Huang needed rice, she would walk through the prayer room, open the door, get some rice, and take it to the kitchen and cook it. They had all the rice they needed all through the invasion while the soldiers were coming down. And when Dr. Huang was telling this story, people would say, well, why didn't they go in and get the rice? And he would get a big smile on his face. He said, I think my angel scared them. And they saw my angel. He says, I didn't see anything. I just saw an empty room. But I think they saw my angel. And they thought, no, we don't want to talk to him. Yes, the angel protected their rice. Isn't that sweet? I think that's a really sweet story. I like that story. I want to have a little prayer before I go. Okay? Dearest Father in heaven, thank you so much for this story about Dr. Huang and how you protected the rice. Lord, that's a miracle. Lord, you are a miracle God. For Jesus' sake, amen. That was a big miracle. Thank you for coming by, and I'll see you next Friday, okay?